Thank you so much. I'm very excited to speak here today. Like you heard, we're going to be talking about real examples and real results. So let's dive right in. All right. I am the Director of Customer Success at Lumavate, where we help marketers build PWAs. I want to walk you through some examples and best practices, as well as the numbers and the results that our customers have seen. Okay, so first, let's lay the groundwork. What are progressive web apps? If you didn't already know, it stands for progressive, which means each time you use it, the data is cached in your browser. It makes it more app-like and faster when you're offline. Web, it means that the experience is hosted behind a URL and it can be accessed by any browser. What that means is it's accessible to users across phones, tablets, and desktops. And best of all, it looks like an app. So the concept of PWAs, the vision really was that it would be a web app and it would be able to provide users with the best in reliability, speed, and engagement. We like to say it brings the best of the web and native apps together. All right, so what this really means for you and your end users, your business, your brand, is that it is lightning fast. So because it is hosted on the web, users don't have to wait for a download. So it's much faster, it's installable to the home screen. So that's where it gives it that app-like experience where users are familiar with having something readily available on their device. It is indexable by Google, which is awesome for any SEO marketers out there. It's just going to increase the ranking of your other domains as well as your PWA. And because we don't have to download anything to our device, it uses minimal storage. So that's the best of the web, marrying with an app-like experience. And best of all, it is secure. So Lumavate, personally, we use everything on an HTTPS, so you can feel confident in the data that you're storing on your PWA. Okay, so when we talk about a PWA, I personally am a see it to believe it kind of person. So I wanted you to be able to see one for yourself. If you grab your smartphone and you open up your camera, you can scan the QR code that's on your screen and see how quickly and easily it is to access the PWA. And then if you so choose, save it to your home screen and navigate through it. So you'll be able to see one live for yourselves. I'll give you just a second to finish scanning that. All right, so hopefully you'll be able to access that and see a spokesperson app that we have. We have created apps for numerous brands, and a number of leading brands have really embraced PWAs into their mobile strategy. You'll see the range of use cases here from Lilly Pulitzer and Uber, all the way to Starbucks, Roche, which is a medical device company, and the NFL have all embraced PWAs. Anybody who's a Twitter user out there, if you go to twitter.com right now, you are accessing a PWA and you likely don't even know it. Same thing with Starbucks, and they're one of our examples we'll talk about, but they created a PWA even though they have a really popular native app. Okay, so why would all these brands embrace PWAs into their marketing strategy? Well, the reason is because for a long time now, PWAs have been gaining momentum. We have seen a lot of broad support from platforms such as Firefox and Apple and Microsoft. Most notably, Apple has really come around. In the US, Apple over indexes, but outside of the US, it is Android devices. So we are seeing a lot of different device manufacturers adopt PWAs and enable them, meaning that your end users are not going to experience any friction. So when you guys scan that QR code, whether you are on an Android or an iPhone, you did not have to use a QR code reader. You didn't have to install a native app to scan it. That is the device manufacturers allowing for QR codes to be recognized by the camera. It's just another way that they're reducing that friction and allowing marketers to embrace a PWA more seamlessly. All right, we're not the only ones that are believing that PWAs are the future. We have seen a lot of analysts really embrace this idea and analyze why it's working. So Jason Wong with Gartner is predicting that by 2023, over 50% of medium to large enterprises will have adopted a low-code application platform as one of their strategic app platforms. And then in another year, they're expecting that those low-code app development will be responsible for more than 65% of application development activity. What that means is they are really seeing that in the business, individuals who are not within IT, so us marketers, us content creators, have a way to create applications and adopt that at an enterprise level. And when we're able to adopt it at an enterprise level, we're likely going to see the number of PWAs being developed just increase exponentially over the coming years. Forrester's analyst is also calling it the future of web. And I love this quote that, you know, PWAs are an emerging technology, but they are the future of desktop and mobile web experiences for all the reasons that we just saw. And as we get into examples, I think this will come to light a bit more. Before we go any further, I have to give a shout out to Francis Berryman and Alex Russell. They are the godfathers and creators of PWAs. And I thought this was really helpful in understanding their vision and why they established this standard. So the idea of native apps always seemed like a regression. Walled gardens with terrible search, dubious security, and the endless attacks of updates. It felt so 1990. This is where they said, why are we embracing a native experience which requires users to go and download and then also puts the onus on developers to create for two separate platforms, push constant updates and bug fixes with some dubious security? Why can't it be better? Why aren't we adopting a web first mentality that delivers that app-like experience? Okay, and so this is why PWAs, users are not downloading apps. Think about your own behavior. When's the last time you went to the Google Play Store or the App Store and purposely downloaded an app? And if you have downloaded an app, how many times have you gone back to reuse that app in the last, let's just even say month? Because the chances are you haven't downloaded an app, and then you are likely to delete apps that you don't use. Think about storage on your phone. You take too many photos, you want to free up some space, or you just realize there's some clutter in your on your home screen. So apps altogether are really just experiencing an awakening among consumers who want to say, I want something different. I don't need something just eating up my storage. Okay, so let's get to the meat of this and really what I think is going to be the best for you guys. First, I want to talk about Indiana University Health. They are one of the largest healthcare systems in the Midwest, and they have embraced a PWA strategy to really improve their patient experience. So within their hospitals, they have launched a hospital wayfinding PWA, helping patients and their families navigate not only driving directions to the hospital, but then inside the hospital walls. And I'll show you that example in more depth, as well as a surgical patient tracker, which is a really great story when we start to think about the recent global pandemic and the impacts on our healthcare system. All right, so the details. Hospital wayfinding. So they've launched it at numerous hospitals. Patients can find their way from like the garage to radiology, or from a blood draw to another doctor's office within their massive hospital complex. That app alone has an average of 3,000 monthly users. What that's telling them is that it's not just patients using it, but it's their family members as well, or visitors. It is allowing them to deliver an individualized experience on a mass scale. What that means is they've built one app, but for you, it feels very personalized because it's giving you turn-by-turn directions from where you are to where you need to go. So it makes that user feel taken care of. It's also lowering the burden on hospital staff, because hospital staff no longer have to stop and help direct people. People can be self-guided and feel good about that. And the numbers are proving that. So they know that most of their users are on mobile, and 91% of them that complete a survey inside of the app are giving it a smiley face, meaning that it was a happy and a positive experience. Absolutely none of those 3,000 monthly users have ever given it a negative review. And the reason they're seeing desktop users, people aren't walking around the hospital with their laptop. What they are doing is they are sending people flyers that you see on the right side of your screen, asking them to activate the app when they're at home, allowing them to maybe plan their trip, become more thoughtful not only about the driving directions and where they need to park, but then familiarizing themselves with the route as well. Okay, so the next example from IU Health is Patient Tracker. you go in for surgery or a loved one goes in for surgery, you want to know where they are throughout that process. Every hospital has a different process, but it basically boils down to they're preparing you for surgery, you're in the surgery room, surgery is actively in progress, and then you're in recovery. This app allows any one of your loved ones who you give your patient information to log in and securely track your progress. So that means that I can follow my husband's surgery and opt in to receive real-time text messages or email notifications letting me know that his status has changed. So I don't have to sit there and just keep refreshing. And what they have seen is an explosion of adoption of this PWA. And COVID really drove that. They actually launched this before COVID was a thing, but they had to, like most hospitals, restrict visitors. But loved ones still want to track their loved ones who are in surgery. So they are able to activate it outside of the hospital, but still remain connected to the loved one that's in surgery. That's why they've seen 500 more users than the old solution. So they had a previous patient tracker that was on an old technology that they had to deprecate, and that's why they moved to this. They've also had an increase of 770% more sessions, so more users are using the application. And then they have rolled it out to more than 20 hospitals because of the adoption and because of the demand that COVID has created. Again, this also lowers the burden on the hospital staff. They don't have to answer questions. Patients feel empowered and their loved ones feel informed. All right, Cummins. So Cummins is a global engine manufacturer, and they service organizations like marine vessels all the way to Volvo and commercial grade trucks with their engines. They have really embraced PWAs throughout their marketing strategy in a variety of areas. So they have an app for internal event team management, meaning it's not for attendees of events, but rather it's for the Cummins team who has to put on an event, who has to staff a booth. We'll walk through that one. Product information, anything that you guys sell, I'm sure it's a product, right? Cummins has a product guide that covers hundreds of products for their marine category, and they wanted to create a digital experience, get away from the PDF, be able to have multimedia and multi versions of content in that application for their buyers and their customers to reference. And that's what that application is. And then an internal training and reference materials guide. This is really internal communications and training for their staff. We'll walk through it, but that one is all locked down behind SSO, so only their employees can access it, giving them the security and the peace of mind that they want. Okay, so the first one, event app for an internal team. Cummins has events globally, and in 2019, they were putting on a number of events throughout the year. Obviously, in 2020, they took a pause with the rest of the world, and they are rolling out another version of the app here, really to kick off their 2022 event season. And they have a lot of logistics that need to be communicated to their team. And this app becomes that one source of truth where the team can reliably get the information that they need. So in 2019, they saw about 1,000 page views per app. And when you think about a team of maybe like 10 or 12 folks who are attending a single event and viewing that app 1,000 times, that tells you how in demand that content and that information really is to them. Like I said, it also becomes that single source of truth. So they saw about 75% of their app users being those returning visitors. It makes perfect sense. Those are their employees, but the employees really adopted it and saw it as a positive. And the average session duration was close to 3 minutes, which means for the amount of content that was in here, that's expected. And we'll talk about how long users should be in your apps when we get to the data portion. But I will just tell you that I think on session duration, it's important to understand the use case of your app and what success is for that specific end user. This application also allowed their team to schedule meetings and work asynchronously within that single source of truth. Again, just made sure their event team was organized and communicating clearly. Okay, product information results. So they wanted to eliminate this printed guide, right? Let's get away from a PDF that is printed once and mailed or emailed to customers or posted on a website. They want to get away from a printed guide because they want to be able to change information in real time. So if prices change, if availability change, if a warranty needs to change, if there's a product recall and information that needs to be shared, it's best done in a digital format where you're not trying to replace a printed PDF or one that is emailed to customers, and maybe they're referencing an older version. So this gives them the ability and the control to manage the customer communication on their terms and their timeline. It is slated to launch later this year, and it is giving them that multimedia asset capability that they were looking for. Okay, internal training app. Doesn't even matter what this content is. Think about your own internal team and the type of internal communication you need to provide. Commons here is providing information about best practices related to hosting meetings and being a good leader, facilitating good conversations, conflict resolution, things like that. They want to make sure that this is secure so they can have a safe space to communicate with their employees. So this application is behind SSO, allowing only Commons employees to access it. And in the time that it's been out, they have seen 3,700 sessions in those first 9 months and about 8,800 page views. So what those numbers are telling us is that their employee base is adopting this. They are regularly visiting it because the session duration is about 2 minutes. So what we're seeing is users are coming in, referencing a section that they need information on, and then leaving the application, but they are returning. And we know that they're accessing this largely on desktop, which is great because they're at work and it makes sense. But there are a small fraction of users who are using it on the go, whether that's mobile or tablet. So offering Commons the availability to have an app-like experience across all the various device types is allowing them to engage their employee base where they are. Okay, let's talk about Starbucks for a minute. I love caffeine and I use the Starbucks app on a daily, if not at least weekly basis. They have a native application that is massive. They decided that they wanted to adopt a progressive web app and they created complete parity in functionality and they did it at a fraction of the size. So, I'm sorry, here we go. So here's the results. They saw that they were able to skinny their PWA down from the native app to 0.4% of the size of that native application, which means it loads faster and it doesn't take up storage on a user's device when accessed. Doubled their daily active users, and it is faster. They also saw an increase in the Starbucks rewards registration via the web, which makes perfect sense on a business side why they did this. That is direct revenue, and that's a direct ROI for Starbucks. Okay, so now what I want to do is make sure you shift your mindset from all of those examples to what numbers matter. Hopefully you have some use cases in mind for what kind of PWAs you might create for your brand. No matter what those are, this is the starting dashboard that I would highly recommend you consider creating in Google Analytics to start off any progressive web app tracking. I think it's great to cover, your users, the user type, meaning whether they're new users, that mix to understand who's coming back, how many new users am I getting on a regular basis, what device type are my users on? Because you need to think about the design. Is it really mobile first or a lot of people using desktop, like in that Commons example? How many pages are my users visiting? Are they even digesting all of my content? How many page views am I seeing related to the number of users that I have and the average session duration? So here we're seeing an example of 3.5 pages and people are blowing through that in a minute 20. Is that good? Are most of your pages containing content that can be read that fast, or are users just flipping through? So you can start to synthesize and assume the user's behavior and then adjust your application according to those numbers and that result that you're seeing. Okay, internally, here's the questions you need to ask. And each one of these, truthfully, could be their own hour-long meeting. but I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. So we're going to ask who, what, where, when, why, and how. And here's why I'm going to ask these questions. Who is the app for? Again, ask this of your internal team. If you're building one for your client, ask it of them. And you want to ask this in conjunction with how familiar and loyal are those targeted app users? What I mean by this is, who is the app for? You're going to identify that demographic. Oh, it's for my customers. Okay, well, how familiar and loyal are they to you? How much does the app need to inform them about this organization or the brand or the product that you're representing or selling? Okay, from that, what you can start to assess is, well, how many total sessions should we see? How many new versus returning visitors should we see in the initial weeks of this launch? Meaning, if we're targeting customers, that's a defined that's a defined number. But then should we see more returning visitors very quickly because we want to re-engage them? And then you're also going to want to be able to track the users by city, because if you truly know the demographic and where people are, you're going to want to know, well, are we seeing them pop up in the right regions? Okay, what will users expect from this app? And really ask this as a generous question. Put yourself in your app user's shoes. What do they expect? What kind of promise are you making for them to activate this, right? So Starbucks, you activate this, we're going to make it easy for you to order or search our menu or get into our rewards program. That's their promise, right? IU Health, you access this PWA on hospital wayfinding. We're going to help you find your way around the hospital quickly. And then you can prioritize the app content better. You can figure out the app functionality and features and start to define your own roadmap. What's our MVP, our minimum viable product, to get it out there to meet those users' expectations? And then how can we improve it over time? And then the requirements on your internal team. What kind of expectations? Do they expect live chat? Okay, well, how are we going to provide that? Who's going to staff it? Are they going to expect new content every day or every week? Who is going to provide that? This is another communication channel, and it's a living and breathing source of communication with your customers and your app users. Measures here, page sessions, your most viewed pages. So if your most viewed pages surprise you, then you don't understand what your users are expecting from you. And then average session duration. Back to my point about how long should it really take somebody to digest the information you've provided on each page. These two questions go well together. Where will users be when they activate the app? And when will they need this app? So sometimes those answers are the exact same thing. Sometimes they are diametrically opposed. You want to identify the device optimization. Where will users be when they activate the app? If you're doing a call to action to activate the app, like let's say in store, in aisle, users are likely going to be on their phone, right? So you need to consider that. But when will they need the app? Okay, well, I'm asking them to activate it in the store to make a purchasing decision, but then it's going to have all this rich information about the product. And a user is going to need that when they get home. Well, at home, are they going to use their mobile device, or are you expecting them to maybe open this up on their desktop? Again, you need to identify the device type to define your UX and your UI, so the design of your application. It's also going to help inform your activation strategy. That is, where are we going to ask for people to activate this? How should they activate it? Should they text in? Should they scan a QR code? Should they click a link? And then same thing as before, priority of that app content. Where are they going to be is going to really dictate what they're going to expect from that app. So a lot of these questions start to work together. Measures, users by device category. Are you right about your assumption about the device optimization, or are your users going to tell you something different? Average session duration. This one is critical because if you start to talk about a user activating the app in aisle, they're not going to be on that app for more than 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. And that might be success, right? So you're going to want to identify those activations and track their session duration to make sure your app content is delivering on its promise and users can get in and get out quickly. Again, pages and sessions here. When are they going to need the app? How many pages should they be going through to get those answers? Why would they come back to the app? Okay, so you want to create an app that engages your users, no matter what that end game is. You don't want to really create one that's one and done and unusable again. So make sure your internal team is prepared to provide the content that's necessary to draw users back, tell them something new, enhance their experience with you and the information that they're seeking. So again, priority of content as well as your app roadmap. Before, when we talked about the prioritization and what kind of features and functionality you need, this is where you can start to really define what you need going forward. I strongly encourage you to consider the metrics that you are seeing to change your roadmap. It's a great thought to have your roadmap, but then don't ignore the customer data that's coming in. You want to make sure that that customer data is truly informing you and making sure, excuse me, that you know what they want and you change that accordingly. Okay. All right. So now we've gone through a series of examples as well as some data points that you should be considering for any successful application. I would love to take some questions now. I know we have a chat, so please feel free.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lei. And we learned so much about what a business can achieve with progressive web applications. And indeed, you're right. I can see our audience also like your speech, and there are a few questions waiting for you. So, are you ready to move with the Q&A?
Yes, I'm all ready.
Perfect. So the first question will be, what PWA challenges affect marketers?
What PWA challenges affect marketers? So I think a couple of things. I think it is broad adoption and an understanding. So as you saw within some of the analyst commentary that we had, it is an emerging technology. It is an emerging technology with a history though. PWAs were created in 2015, so we've had a healthy 6 years of the technology and the solution evolving, as well as some of those major players really adopting solutions that enhance its usability. So everything from Firefox to Apple to Android, Safari and Google allowing it. But I would say that broad understanding among enterprises and understanding that to have an app, because you remember, there's an app for that and everyone has to have an app, that mentality, that meant something in the app store. And today it's something very different. So it's just learning a new technology and finding people who are on the bleeding edge and willing to take smart risks with developing a new kind of solution and a new kind of app that is accessible to more people, but not found within what is the traditional app stores.
Okay, nice. Thank you for your answer. Next question is from Tom Towie, and he would like to know, so do PWA stores have access to the geolocation, right?
PWA have geolocation. Yes, that capability is available. Where it gets into ahead of the PWA capabilities is anything like beacon technology or Bluetooth. Those are limited by the device manufacturers. So Apple and Android not allowing for that yet.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. The next question is from Kieran Alcorn, and the question is, what is PWA's potential from a marketing perspective?
Truly, it's limitless. Okay. The use cases that I showed you cover a variety of needs. Everything from internal communications and event planning, wayfinding, medical information, device. You can facilitate live chat. You can do calendaring. There's a lot out there. And the reason for that is low code, no code adoption. So we are playing in a very big field where there are a lot of solutions out there that have open APIs and allow for connectivity, meaning that you can build a PWA that connects to other technology. I'll give you an example. So Lumavate has a library of components that allow you to assemble and build your app. We build integrations to things that are already built. We're not reinventing the wheel, right? So Calendly is a good example. Calendly is a great calendaring solution. We built an integration to them so we can bring their stuff in. We built an integration to Google Maps, right? Why are we going to build our own map? Google is awesome at it. We built an integration to social media so we can draw in their stuff. So those become limitless potential when you have an ecosystem that is willing to say, great, connect with my stuff. I'm going to be the best in my area, and I'm going to allow you to pull that into your application. So I would say if you start to think about a use case, likely a PWA can solve it. And there's solutions out there that you can pull in, so you don't have to build it all from scratch.
Question is from Mark Berger, and the question is, are there any unsuccessful PWA marketing strategies?
Oh, sure. There's bad marketing every day. I would say those are the ones that don't ask the questions that I covered before. So here, I'll just go back and we can look at them. And this is why I said you need to ask these questions. I have absolutely seen marketers go down a bad path because they make too many assumptions and they aren't really thinking about the app end user. They aren't thinking about the longevity of their app. We saw this happen when native apps really became more ubiquitous in like 2011, 2012, and more large brands were coming on board and they just said, we want an app. But they built an app that didn't meet the needs of the consumers. They didn't take the time to think about them. So those same pitfalls apply to a PWA. The other pitfall to PWAs, I will say, is, to answer the previous question, the opportunities for a PWA are limitless. There are some limits to the capabilities, right? We are seeing more device manufacturers and solutions adopt standards that enable and facilitate a PWA. But like I said, they don't offer beacon. Apple doesn't allow for push notifications. Like, there are some limitations. And so going in blind and not understanding what limitations exist and if those are required of your app, that would facilitate a bad user experience. But I think if you ask these questions and define what the functionality is and do your research, you'll be more confident in knowing if a PWA is really going to meet the needs of your app users.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is from Vitaly Velichko, and the question is, will PWA stay with us for a long time?
I certainly hope so. I think so. I've been in this business a long time. And I would say nothing stays the same long, which is good, but there is continuity, right? So the web isn't going away. The need and the connection that all of us have, I mean, my device is within arm's reach all the time. That's not going to change. It's just going to evolve, right? And right now we're at an inflection point where we're seeing an evolution away from native apps, and we're seeing web really take a stand. And like I've said, Google and others are facilitating this ability for app-like experiences through the web. So I don't believe PWAs are going to go away. I just think they're going to constantly evolve in their stages and their capabilities. So I definitely think it's something to keep up on. It's something to watch. And I would say get into it early so you start to live that experience and understand it at a more granular level. I think that's going to be really important for marketers going forward.
Next question is from Anonymous, and Anonymous wants to know, does PWA introduce new quality in customer service?
Does it new quality in customer service? I would say that it does, but I would go back to the question of how familiar are users with you? So with a customer service, so at Lumavate, we have a lot of chat solutions. You can have live chat in your PWAs, which is becoming more popular and more required of a customer service, right? That real-time texting ability, I need help now. So yes, I think so. But I also think you still have that challenge of how do you get your customers to activate it? At what point do they need it? Where are they going to find it? It comes back to your activation strategy and your own customer engagement. So if you build a PWA with chat, that's wonderful, but you still need to have a staff that is there to answer questions, to update it with product information, FAQs, whatever is necessary. So I still, and as the director of customer success, the challenge is still on me as a person to provide that content and find the right channel to get that in my customers' hands. But I certainly think a PWA has a place, but it's not a magic pill, right? You still have to do the work and have the team behind it to support those customers and their needs.
Thank you. Well, Lee, you've showed a very good timing, and
Perfect.
As far as I can see, there are no questions left. And And that means that your presentation and your speech was really very informative, and everything was really clear for everybody. And
Good.
thank you very much for your speech, for your talk, for your answers. That was really amazing, really informative for me and for all who attended your speech. And
Thank
let's
you.
move together. Let's move together to our next session with Mark Huntington, who will break down another business case and explain the impact of decision to build PWAs. So see you very, very soon. And thank you once again, Lee. Have a nice conference.
Thank you.